Questions.
Yeah, so today I wanna ask about like the difference in the perception when I do the turning the light around thing, like the feeling I get of spaciousness versus the feeling of the I or the me that I feel all the time. So like the way I feel about myself when I was a child, the feeling of I that pervades throughout like the body, and also now I can't even find the border of it.
So you're saying that there's
Are
a feeling of I that has persisted since childhood.
Yeah.
Okay, go on.
So like when I ask myself the question, who am I? I try to go into what I think, what I am calling I, and that I has always been this feeling that I get within, uh, like the within the like like around the body, not within the body,
Okay,
but
so
around.
let's go into this feeling that you have of I that has persisted
Mhm.
since childhood. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so it's a earlier the feeling was much more solid than how it is now. Earlier, like earlier, it used to feel like more like the way like when I constrict my muscle. So let's say I say I like I stress on something and I constrict on the on my body.
Mm-hmm.
Then I feel this. I feel I used to feel this very heightened sense of I in the body, and I thought that was sensation. Uh,
Well, we
but
don't
once
know.
I
We don't
lose,
know yet. Could you possibly raise your camera to where you're higher in the screen? So there
yeah,
you go. Perfect. Yeah, a little bit more. There we go. Good. 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 Okay. So say more.
yeah. So first step I used to do was I will amplify the feeling of I. So I will say this is me, or I just say the word I, and that will amplify or intensify the feeling, the vague feeling I had in the body. Uh, and I thought, okay, maybe that is just sensation and not the I that I need to meditate on. But lately, what I have noticed that I stopped doing that, and I just went into the question of who am I. And now what I feel is it's a much subtle feeling similar to I, but then this feeling is more. It's like it's more infinite, like there's no boundary of it as such. It just feels like a plane that has been cut through me, extending in all the directions. And I was comparing this feeling to the feeling I get when I do the turning the light around and I feel the space behind me. It feels pretty similar to that.
Okay.
So I was wondering, am I still in an
Describe the
illusion thing?
scene. Describe the scene of your earliest memory of this I that you're talking about.
The earliest memory of this I would be maybe when I was 7 or 8 years old, something around that time.
What was happening?
I think I was just walking, and
What do you remember?
I was. Uh, I think I was walking, and something happened. Like me, like I think I was sad that either one of my aunts who came with me, who was staying with me, they left to their home, and I was feeling sad because of that. And then suddenly I had a thought uh, that where is this sadness? Where am I feeling this sadness? And 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 but I feel the same yesterday compared to now. Yesterday when she was at the home, and I was feeling happy, but the underlying feeling was the same as today. So why am I sad? That's that I can I can
I mean,
recollect as
literally, you
far as
saw her
possible.
yesterday?
No. I mean, on that day when I
Okay.
was seven
Yeah,
years
okay,
old,
okay, okay. All right, so what's your question?
so so earlier when I got this feeling of I thought it was an illusion, like a fake thing that I should not meditate on. And now is it still fake, or is it now the right place where I can meditate on it, like said in the like in Nisargadatta Maharaj's books or in other books?
In the what books?
So in the I Am That book, like in Nisargadatta Maharaj's book, his teacher told him to meditate on the I amness of yourself, and he
Yeah.
meditated on that.
Well, unfortunately, this focus on the I is unfortunate wording, and it may also be an unfortunate, translation. In India, in the Vedic traditions, I and self refer to God and consciousness. But in English, in the West, those refer to the personal self, the personal consciousness. So, yes, it's good that you're getting closer, but you still have a personal I in there. And that part is what needs to go. But to do that, you need to know what you are, not intellectually. I mean, you can do this. I mean, and a lot of Vedic people do this. They just keep repeating that mantra: "I am that. I am that," or "I am. I am. I am. I am. I am. I am. I am." And then they get the idea that, hey, I must be all that there is. But that's very different than dropping altogether the personal I, the personal ego, the uh, the egoic aspects of all of that, and just being unadulterated awareness. So the fact that there was an emotion means you're on the wrong track,
Hmm.
right? But this happened. Don't feel bad. People do this all the time. They confuse emotionality with higher consciousness. Now, some
There
kinds
was
of
the question.
emotionality can lead to higher consciousness, especially in passive bhakti, right?
Mhm.
But it's not the same thing at all. At all. It's a much lower function of the organism, and it's a function of the organism. It's an animal function. I mean, dogs have them, monkeys have them, humans have them. That's not it.
Got it.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So I have
Follow
a
up.
follow up.
Good. Follow
Yeah,
up.
I have. What's the difference between meditating on the like meditating in turning the light around where I focus on space behind me versus meditating on this spaciousness of I that I am feeling. What's the difference between these two?
Well, you're still meditating on something, so they have that
Yeah.
the way you're doing it. But when you
Hmm.
stop having the object that you're meditating on, then we can talk more, right? But you still have the notion of the subject object. I'm meditating on this, and that I will go eventually, and then there'll just be what's there instead of what you're imposing the I on that spacious awareness, or you're imposing the I on the meditation, or the
Hmm.
contemplation, or the whatever, or just simple observation.
But to get to that point where the I disappear, isn't like this isn't this like a step that I need to go through, or is there a
No, I
or am
think
I doing something?
that I think that everything you're doing is necessary for you, absolutely. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I think it's good. I think it's great. But it needs to go further.
Yeah. That I yeah, totally agree.
So get rid of the meditator, get rid of the meditation, and get rid of the object of meditation.
Mm-hmm.
and just be with what's there.
Mm-hmm. So I have a follow-up on that
Yeah,
too.
just one second. I believe that, again, the reason this Tao Te Ching is so appealing is because it's very simple. It's not a religion. It's not a dogma. It's not a movement. There's no gurus involved. It says right here, when unity was attained of old, heaven became clear by attaining unity. Earth became steady by attaining unity. Spirit was quickened by attaining unity. Valley streams were filled by attaining unity. All beings were born by attaining unity. And by attaining unity, lords acted rightly for the sake of the world. What brought this about was unity. Without means of clarity, heaven may burst. Without means of steadiness, earth may erupt. Without means of quickening, spirit may be exhausted. Without means of filling, valley streams may dry up. Without means of birth, all beings may perish. Without means of acting rightly, lords may stumble. So here, for those who don't know what quickening means to enliven, the quick and the dead, to the alive and the dead. So there is a nameless reality that is the root and the source of everything that is, especially life, and maybe especially human life. And that's where you're headed. But it's not a personal thing or a personal process per se. Did you listen to that Krishnamurti tape that was linked to in the video yesterday? The root of thought.
I watched. Yeah, I watched the video, but I didn't get the. I didn't listen to the Krishnamurti video.
Okay. Yeah, the Krishnamurti one on the root of thought can be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Another question?
Yeah, I have another question.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah. So sometimes it has
It's
happened in the
very,
past.
excuse me, it's extremely difficult to rid oneself of the personal notion, since it's been, I mean, literally that's what you're made of. I mean, your mental self is made of these notions. It's made of your personal memories and your personal histories and your personal. This is why the Toltecs say erase personal history. But there's two things. One thing is that as evidence that consciousness is not part of the brain, an argument was made to the neuroscientists recently, I suppose, that look, unlike the brain, which ages and falters, becomes weak, consciousness does not do that. Unlike the body, which begins to fall apart as you get older and older and older, consciousness does not do that. The consciousness remains the same, pristine. And this is a very subtle argument, and it's not well taken, unfortunately, that consciousness is in a different category than the biological, neurological brain. They don't want to hear that yet. They're dealing with enough already, you know, in terms of revolutions in science. All right? So that's a separate thing altogether than these others. Okay? Now let's go to the question.
Yeah, so sometimes in the past and also lately, when I'm meditating, uh, sometimes I just forget that I'm meditating, and then after like half an hour or more, the alarm rings up, and then I then I realized that I was meditating. So in that during that time, it feels that I was not there, but then there's not even a memory. There's not even I was not even conscious. So
Were you asleep?
I was not asleep
How do you know?
because I was still sitting.
Were there thoughts?
I mean, I can't remember. I only remember the time beforehand where I was bringing the attention back to the thing again and again, to
Turning the
the
light
breath,
around?
or yeah, or to the breath, or turning the light around. And then after that, I don't even remember bringing that I was even bringing the attention back because there's no memory of that small time when that happens.
So meditation is becoming easier for you, is what you're saying? The time passes
Yeah,
quickly. Good. This is all progress. Good, good, good. Yeah, it becomes easier. It becomes, is it pleasant now?
no, I mean, like when I go for meditation at the start, it's not pleasant because I have other things that I want to attend to, and
Okay.
then I
But then
sit
you're able
down.
to calm your, how do you calm your minds where you could sit like that for half an hour without, how do you do
Oh,
it? I mean,
so I think
teach
you
people. That's what this is about. Teach people how you do it.
okay. So overall, what has happened in the last 1 year is I have kind of dropped the desires that I had, like let go of the desires that I had, and
The
that
usual human
reduced.
desires, right?
Yeah, and
Okay.
that reduced the turbulence in the mind,
Okay.
and and on a daily basis, as some urge or something arises,
Mm-hmm.
I immediately kind of recognize it. It's a waste, and then that goes away. So
Good.
in general, the frequency and the turbulence in the thoughts have
So
gone
what? So
down
wait a
a
minute.
lot.
So you realize it's a waste. What do you realize is a waste?
Any small thing that arises. So like for
A
example,
train of thought.
oh,
A train of thought
there's a thought. Yeah,
that you realize if I get on that train, it's just going to go nowhere.
yeah, it's a
So I don't get
futile.
on it.
Yeah,
I just let it fall off the cliff.
yeah.
Very, very good. That's
Uh,
a very powerful practice. Just that alone for people in general. Forget the the quest for enlightenment or awakening. You just live a better life if you can let those trains of thoughts that you know are going to go nowhere. Just let them, let them go by you, and then you just fall off. The train falls off a cliff, and you don't have to bother with it. So
mm.
that's good. All right, keep going.
So with that, I think that after that effort, like it doesn't take much effort to sit and do nothing. So when I do sit and do meditation, then it's easier just because of that, I think.
And you have a demanding job, right?
Yeah, I do have a demanding job, and I do have other endeavors that I try to
Sure. So it's
pursue.
not like you have to replace your life. It's more like you enrich your life. Correct?
Yeah, yeah, because yeah, I think definitely earlier with the thoughts, even the thought of wanting something or to like be successful, even though I realized that even those were creating turbulence. So even those were waste of time.
In
So
the Tao
just
Te Ching, they
dropping.
said, if you do not dwell on success, success will not leave. Right? So you're
Mm,
discovering that.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's counterintuitive, but you're discovering that by being obsessed with success, you don't pay attention to what's in front of you, and you don't
mm.
do as well. So good, good. So to what would you attribute the fact that it's gotten easier for you over this last year?
I think it's just a realization that what I want in life is like waking up
Peace, yeah,
as
joy, waking,
the
yeah, insight.
most important thing,
Hmm.
and with that, anything that is an obstacle, it's very easy to drop that.
Superb, good. All right.
So and then I realized that both the positive thoughts and the negative thought both are an obstacle.
There you
So
go.
better to
Ooh, see, you're making real progress. Yeah, and so as I remember when I first heard that I was going to need to drop hope and fear, I thought, oh my God, that's, it seemed unimaginably difficult to me. Unimaginably difficult. I couldn't imagine it. It sounded ridiculous. It didn't make any sense. But then, with time, you start to realize what it's meant, and that's the thing. I suspect that the effort that you made, see, because you took steps towards God, or towards truth, or towards the Tao, or Atman, or Brahma, or whatever, Buddha. And since you took steps, the way the things are organized, it comes towards you, and then it becomes more easy, more fruitful. Good. That's excellent. Good. All right. Do you want to say more?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then after that, once I sit down in meditation, I
Mm-hmm.
think because I did Vipassana a long time ago,
Mm-hmm.
10-day meditation. So it's pretty
Explain what
easy to do the
Vipassana is. Explain what Vipassana is to people.
So Vipassana is basically like, as far as I think, it's a meditation technique to learn how to focus on breath and just keep on doing that. In the US, I think it's a 10-day program offered by
A 10-day
Dharma.
program. See, the Americans are so much like that. All right. I think it's mindfulness meditation, is it not? It's the idea is to make you more mindful. And you do that through different techniques. You can focus on the breath. You can focus on watching your thoughts go by. You can focus on just about anything.
I think in the course they
But the
said the
idea
way
that
that
it's a 10-day program is ridiculous. And that shows how, in the US, we want to package everything up into a marketable size. And then we go out and sell it. And that's the tragedy of Dharma in the West. There used to be magazines like Tricycle Magazine, where literally they were advertising all these different, and very nice cushions, very nice, yoga outfits, and very nice, all kinds of things. Whatever you could sell, they wanted to sell. And then they started selling retreats, and so it goes. There's nothing wrong with this, although some people have bad experiences there, and oftentimes they're guided by people who don't know enough to be doing this kind of thing, and so bad things can happen, but they're rare. Anxiety reactions or things like that. But this like incessant
well, yeah,
need to
I
package and market everything that moves. It's really quite extraordinary. It may be coming to an
yeah
end.
yeah, I've heard about that. That a lot of people who go in the program after 3 or 4 days, they can't stay and then they leave the program.
Yeah, that's
Even though
unfortunate. Yeah.
program is Yeah, even though program is free, it's on like on the basis of donation. But
Yeah.
they need money to make it running, right?
Right.
Somehow
And so
they
that's
need to
very
make it.
unfortunate because now that person has a bad taste in their mouth and they think that there's something wrong with them when it could be that there's something wrong with the program that prescribes a one size fits all to everybody.
Yeah,
And so, if nothing else, this channel can serve to warn people against these oversimplified and poorly conceived programs of development that are really oftentimes led by people who have just barely managed to learn to meditate. That's it. They don't know anything about human psychology or any of the problems that can arise. They don't know about meditation making anxiety worse or even PTSD, and also PTSD worse. And so they don't understand what they need to know in order to be leading others. Okay? I'm not saying that's always true. I'm saying that I've seen enough of it in my life to want to warn people about it. Okay?
yeah. But yeah, with that,
Go ahead.
it became easier to just focus on the breath, and then yeah, so I just do that.
Good. So you put in the effort and now you reap the reward. Good.
So, yeah, and I know that if the mind is too turbulent, then I first need to calm down first. So then I use the counting or the easier breathing
Right.
meditation.
Just
And that
a count from 1 to 10. Count on the out breath. If thoughts arise, just start over. And it's not a war, it's not a contest, it's not a battle, it's not, it's basically just there to calm your mind, not to get to the highest number possible. And if you get to 4, you're doing very well. Very well if you get to 4 without thoughts interrupting you. Okay, good. You want to say more?
No,
Okay,
that
good.
was it.
Question? Thank you. That's helpful to folks. Question?
Yeah, I have another question. So this, I think I DM'd you on Twitter. That so this like
We call it X now.
meditation.
Before they
X,
shut
yeah,
it
on
down.
it.
Before they shut it down. Okay.
Yeah, this meditation on the spaciousness that I've been doing. When I go and like talk to people or do thinking or read something,
Mm-hmm.
then I feel like I lose that awareness of that space, and I need to intentionally focus on the gaps, like silence between the words, or like take a breather to get back to that spaciousness. And I was wondering how we can do both at the same time, like do the activity but also be aware of the spaciousness at the same time.
As a preliminary matter, people ask if they could. This, I think, this comes from either Rupert Spira's or yeah, Rupert Spira. I think his awareness of awareness. Is that correct? The notion that you should be able to do both at the same time. Originally, that's where it started, where the idea was that you could meditate doing whatever you were doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's just a stepping stone. There's still a duality. There's still your attention over here on the person that you're speaking to or whatever you're attending to. And then in the back of your mind, there's a part of you that's attending to the spaciousness of the sky-like nature of mind.
Mm-hmm.
That duality will eventually leave. It's not a tenable way to do it. Do you see what I'm saying? So as a teaching exercise, as you know, a few lungs on the ladder that you're climbing up, or a few steps on the stairway, we speak in those terms. But ultimately, both of those hinge on having an I there that's doing things. You see, so either
Yeah.
I'm talking to someone or I'm meditating on the spaciousness, and that hinge, that I, is the problem. So when that leaves, then there will be no one meditating on anything. There will simply be what is. And people call that the supreme meditation. You know, they call it all kinds of things, but they would say that that's the goal of meditation. And so in the Toltec, when they say to erase personal history, what they're saying in just so many words is get rid of the personal I, get rid of the personal ego. It's because it's a fabrication. It's false. It's not real. I mean, it's real in the conventional sense that we're just talking about this or that. I mean, I have a shirt on, I have a stick, I have rang a bell, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But in the realms where you're headed, there is no such I. And so the statement, I meditate on this and I meditate on that, and I want to meditate on them both simultaneously. The problem is not the this and the that. The problem is the I in the middle. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that
Okay.
makes.
So when you drop the I, then there won't be any issue. And so I suggest
But
that
then
you struggle through. I mean, it's difficult, the Krishnamurti, the root of thought. But he does get to it. And I think with this much information, I think you can grok what he's trying to say. Or not. Maybe it's a little bit too difficult. It's difficult for me because he talks so idiosyncratically. Well, I shouldn't say difficult. It's you have to know his language, I guess. You know, Krishnamurti's language. So let me think. What else might do help? Let me think about it, and if not by the end of this, at some later date, I'll make a recommendation or prescription of what might be useful at this point. All right?
got it. Yeah.
Next question.
Yeah, next question is about second attention. I think you talked about that in your last video, or
Yes.
like one of your last videos too.
Right.
So I think the example was like, I think visualizing pylons coming out of the feet,
Mm-hmm.
and then
For
that
stability.
I
For
think you
stability. Yeah.
yeah, for stability, and then you mentioned that. Uh, so I think I didn't get clearly whether that was the second attention or whether that led to second attention. Uh, my understanding so far has been that the dream state, dreaming happens in second attention. But if I'm aware of something, if there's an I, then that is not the second attention.
No, there can be an I in the second attention. The second attention is a preliminary step. It's an important one. And the reason it's brought up is because we're so impoverished in the West in particular. We've thrown the baby out with the bathwater. And so if the human mind is the size of a stadium, let's say, but
Mm-hmm.
we only use a tennis ball worth or a golf ball size worth of it. We're hyper rational, hyper focused on what we can prove and what we can't. What can I say in public and what can I not say in public? What will make me look ridiculous and what will not make me look ridiculous? What do we have scientific evidence for? What do we? It's a reductionist. It comes from the Enlightenment, right? And good for the Enlightenment. In the few hundred years ago when we threw out superstition and threw out religion and we threw out the baby with the bathwater, and so we lost an entire aspect of mind that's very, very valuable, and now we have to rediscover it. Now, this kind of mind is known and used by uh, native peoples that we would call, well, they're primitive because they think like that, but that's not the case. It's just another manner of thinking. It's another form of using the mind, and it can be very, very powerful. But in the West, it's considered uh, undesirable, except by poets, artists, and true scientists and true uh, humans who are using their whole everything they've got. Something like that. It's very hard to pin down.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want to because it's the second attention after all. Otherwise, we end up with just the second attention put into a little box of the first attention.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that.
But as things start to fall apart, the wise use of the second attention will become more and more important
Mm-hmm.
for many things, including healing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It's not something you
Okay.
can talk about easily, nor should you necessarily.
Okay.
It's kind of an
Okay.
advanced topic. Even though it's not advanced at all, to talk about it is advanced.
Mm-hmm.
It's like teachings for the right side versus the left side.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we wanted to get reductionist about it, we'd refer to the left hemisphere being the hemisphere of language and reason and structure and syntax, and we'd speak about the right hemisphere as being the synthetic, the holistic, the integrating, the creative, the differently creative side. And we could go down that road too, but that's just that yield is only for a very few people. You see? Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Next
Okay.
question.
Yeah. So doing my regular contemplation around death,
Oh,
I somehow
good, 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 good.
I ended up with this thing. There's a thing called Socrates apology. I didn't know before about that, so I read through it, and I, the
Who wrote
first
it?
question that so I think it was Plato's one. So
Good.
Plato's
So
version of Socrates
Plato's.
apology.
Okay, good, good, good.
Yeah, so as I was going through it, first it like I thought, is this even true? Like the account even true that's mentioned here? Uh,
Which
and then,
part?
but then, so like so the main idea in that was all the things he was doing was mainly because there was a prophecy from an oracle that he was the wisest man. So he would go and question everyone. He thought he was wise. He thought he was wise to basically figure out whether that was true or not. And that's how he ended up being a notorious person in the society at that time. First of all,
Why
that
would that seem like why would that seems perfectly believable to me? Why would that seem unbelievable to you?
like what so like if I think in terms of a Sufi, so like a Sufi person who wants to stay like at, be in the world, doesn't want to create problems for himself. Why would they go around do that when they know it's creating problems which might end up them getting killed or getting executed because of doing this thing? And why there's a need to prove that you are the wisest or not?
First of all, Socrates never his evidence that he was again we can go to the Tao Te Ching. So this is a very important subject. And in this morning's reading from the Tao Te Ching, I'm starting to feel like a preacher for the Tao Te Ching. I'm going to scripture. This is not scripture, but let's look at what the 500 years at the same time, more or less as Socrates, what did they say about being the wisest person in the world? They say sages never contrive greatness. That's one thing. That's chapter 34. Okay, here's what I was looking for. This is why, quote, this is chapter 39. This is why noble people refer to themselves as alone, lacking, and unworthy. And what Socrates said was he knew he might be the wisest man in the world. I mean, in Athens, because he alone knew that he knew nothing, and everybody else was full of their opinions and their pseudo knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And they didn't kill him because he was wise. They killed him because he was teaching the young, and it was it might be destabilizing to the powers that be for the same, just like what's happening now in the U.S. If you well, I shouldn't go there, so I won't. But so what's now? Are you saying that Jesus was less a Sufi because he was crucified?
No, I mean, he says, I don't know what was his intention behind getting crucified. He could have
You don't know, but
escaped,
you should
or
find out. You should find out, even though you're not from our, from the same cultural background. That's a very good question that you need to. I would think that would be very fruitful for you to find out about.
Mhm.
Do you think that if you're great person, that society is going to treat you well?
No. Society has always treated them the worst in their times.
Not likely,
Yeah,
you know.
not always, but like most likely, they have
No,
treated them
what makes
worse.
you think that? Give me examples. Was Muhammad
And most
treated
likely,
well?
no, no, I'm saying most likely they have been treated. Sorry, worse, not well, worse.
Okay, if they become
Yeah,
public, if they go public, and most
yeah,
don't.
yeah.
Okay,
There with Jesus.
so go ahead. Let's go back. So you found this improbable. The story, Plato's description of Socrates being described as the wisest man in Athens, and Socrates saying,
No,
"Well, I guess I must. I mean, I don't know. I doubt it, but perhaps it's because I don't know anything."
no, I don't find that improbable. What I find improbable was him going around asking, questioning other people to figure out whether he's actually the wise one or not.
Well, he was also teaching that way.
Okay, so if so that intention was not there in the apology, that he was actually teaching by doing that. In the apology, it just seemed that he was just questioning people
Well, maybe he
because
was
the
sincerely questioning people. I mean, why wouldn't he question people? I mean, he needs to learn. He wants to learn. Why wouldn't he learn everywhere he could? Remember, there's no YouTube. There's no books to speak of in that way, right? There's no radio. There's no TV. There's no, there's a few plays now and then. But how else would one become educated in those days?
yeah, through people and materials. Yeah,
And what materials did they use?
yeah, they had. I'm pretty sure they had like much less available than what it is
Much less
now.
available. Much of it was written afterwards, right?
Yeah, yeah.
No,
Okay,
Socrates.
so
I mean,
India.
this came as a very bitter surprise to me when I learned that Socrates was an illuminate, a highly realized man. And when I'd studied him in college, it was so dry and so they missed the whole point. They missed the whole thing. It was pretty amazing. 180 degrees wrong. So no, Socrates is. So what kind of questions did he ask though?
I think what kind of questions he asked in the apology, I don't remember reading any specific
He
question,
probably
but
asked about
he.
things like justice and things like, how should a nation be governed, and what is correct and what is right and what is wrong when in the context of the organization of a state or in the understanding of an individual human. His questions were not stupid.
Mhm. Oh yeah, that I'm pretty sure those questions were definitely good ones and relevant ones
Right.
of that time.
But your conclusions is curious. You said that you thought this was improbable, or what did you say? I'm not sure.
That this account of him going around asking people just to figure out whether he is the wise one or not, that one seemed improbable. Maybe some other reason was behind him doing that.
Like what?
I don't know.
Well, to think about it, see, these are here. So he's teaching to this day. We're still talking about him.
Mhm,
And Plato saw fit to write volumes about him. So now you need to think, well, what could it have been?
mhm,
That's why these men existed, and women, etc.
mhm.
And that's why they're preserved for us by people who cared enough about humanity to do such a thing. In this case,
Yeah.
Plato, right?
Yep.
There's a statement, you may not be familiar with it, in the West. It's that all of Western philosophy is a footnote to Plato, or something to that effect.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's not without reason, and he used Socrates as his exemplar.
Mhm.
And if you're going to talk about enlightened, if you read his death, I think you could see that some of the fruit of being a wise man, because he faced death. It was not a thing at all.
Yeah, that was my second thing that I wanted to
All right, let's
to
ask it.
talk
Ask it.
about. Yeah. So whenever he talked about that, he told the assembly or like the people present there that he is not afraid of death, and the reasoning behind for him was that so he had this like I think this line really written in that, which was, "For this fear of death is indeed the pretense of Sophia, which is wisdom, and not real Sophia, being the appearance of knowing the unknown, since no one knows whether death, which they fear, apprehend to be the greatest evil, may not be the greatest good, but it might be good for you." So he said that people don't know whether death is actually good or not. They are just afraid of that. So they term it as evil. They have termed that as evil one.
Okay.
That was one of the reasoning for him that he is not afraid of death. I think that was the main reasoning for him to be not afraid of death.
No, I don't
But he
think that
did
was the
talk
main
about
reason. Why do you think that's the
like
main
in the
reason?
hmm?
Why do you think that was his main reason?
In the apology, that point has been mentioned multiple times. Why he is not afraid of death.
Did you read the accounts of his death and what he said to his students as he was about to drink the hemlock?
No, that I
Yeah, you should read
haven't
that.
read.
I don't know what the citation is, but read that. That's a very different picture. So those are third
Okay.
person accounts, right?
Yeah.
And who knows who he
Okay.
was speaking to? Of course, Socrates would probably, no, he would likely speak to people in accord with their ability to understand, in accordance with their
Mm-hmm.
capacity to understand, just like I endeavor to do, right? Like any teacher endeavors to do. Because it's a waste if you say something they can't comprehend any of it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So read the accounts that are more close to his death. Actually, read the accounts when he's drinking the hemlock. That we have records of that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a beautiful description of how an enlightened man faces death. Or and why and how. I mean, it's inspiring.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Yeah, I'll read those.
Okay, good. It's great
Yeah.
that you're learning the Western canon. That's fantastic, man. Good for you. You're gonna make me feel guilty now. I got to go study Indian text. Okay. Next question.
Yes, yeah. This one is a question I I have about Ramana Maharshi's teachings.
Okay,
Uh,
good.
so in this one, I think one of his disciple, I think his name was Anamalai Swami or something. Yeah, Anamalai Swami, and he, at least from the accounts of the books and stuff, it seems he woke up, uh, but then he was basically giving a description of Ramana Maharshi's teaching, and the crucial point was, if you give up identifying with the body and meditating on the self, which you already are, you can attain self-realization.
This is self with a
Do
capital S, right?
Yeah, self
By
with a
self, they
capital
mean
S.
God.
Yeah,
If you meditate on God.
yeah, yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Do self inquiry and stop identifying with the body, and try to be aware of the self, which is your real nature. Stop identifying with it. If you can convince yourself this little self is not really me, it will just disappear. It is only when we identify ourselves with and limit ourselves to the body and the mind that this false self is born. But then they didn't talk about how to convince yourself because logically convincing yourself, I don't know how to do it.
I don't like that convincing oneself. I don't believe in convincing. I believe in knowledge. So in experience. So experience knowledge comes from experience. True knowledge comes from
Yeah.
experience. Convincing, well, actually it's pretty well put. That's another way. That's unfortunately, or not unfortunately, I should say. It appears that the way of, at least that's evident currently, and from the little bit that I know, that the difference between Hindu teaching and Sufic teaching, for example, is that in Hindu there's a much greater reliance on belief and convincing oneself that something's true, where in Sufism and in Taoism and in Buddhism, it's experience that counts. Because if you can be convinced of, okay, now this is my comment. If you can be convinced of something, you can be unconvinced of it. Whereas knowledge, you simply know, and you can't be unconvinced of something you have from direct experience. Correct?
Yeah.
And so this is a difference in the two paths. And one of the reasons why I chose, my ilk is more rational and more, rigorous scientifically, or so they say. And so I much prefer experience and knowledge to belief and convincing and opinion.
Mhm.
So you could go the other route, and it's a lot easier, I suppose. It's very popular these days, but it's different than what I'm recommending.
I mean, I tried to follow that path many years ago,
Which
but it
path?
didn't
Which
work for
path?
me.
The Hindu, the Vedic.
Like, yeah, yeah, having the belief first, and then that belief will lead to experience eventually. I was not getting any experience. and I was not also not. I didn't even have the belief because I, because of how I have been brought up. I'm more logical, I would say, uh,
I
and
think it's
because
a
of that, I
different. There
was
may
not.
be a gender difference too. I mean, the more male, the more likely you are to want to have something as solid as personal experience, and the more female, the more. I mean, these are gross generalizations, and I take them back even before I say them. The female's more open, more fluid, and more easily can more easily access the second attention. And so many of these things are easier for women. In the Toltec scheme of things, women are better dreamers. And they may be better stalkers too, now that I think about it. So forget that gender difference. Yeah, but there's two different approaches. One is belief, and belief can be okay. So folks need to understand that in the last century, beginning as late as the Koreans during the Korean War, but much before that, frankly. But let's just talk about this start. The science and art of brainwashing, of convincing people of something that they would never believe otherwise, was developed to a high art, and that was also studied, of course, by the Americans and by everyone, because of the use of these techniques of psychological conversion became useful as weapons, right? Because if you could make an American soldier, get on camera and talk about how great communism was, or if you could convert the victim of a bank robbery into being a bank robber herself. I'm thinking of Patty Hearst. The government realized that you could use this as a weapon in other countries in times of war, and they did on all sides. And now they're using it domestically to control people as well. And now this didn't start in the modern world. I mean, there's been some elements of this going way, way back. You can go, I mean, God forgive me, but the Catholic Church is, they know all about this too. And so there are plenty of people who want to trick you into believing something. Or not trick is not the right word, force you into believing something. And you can do this, and this is where the Sufis really insulate, because they describe these techniques of the repetition, the emotionality, the group effects, the variation of emotionality from fear to joy and back, to the use of all kinds of different techniques to make you more vulnerable to a conditioned belief. Now, I'm not going to. There's nothing to be said negatively against the conditioned belief of people who go to certain meetings and become more, quote, spiritual, unless they go off the deep end, which they do sometimes, and we see this over and over. That's earlier I talked about how susceptible. I'll speak about Americans are to cults of any kind. They can be religious cults. They can be criminal. They can be political. I mean, people, the use of, in today's world, in the recent past, say the last 50 years, the use of media to condition beliefs into people has reached an apex. And now with the AIs, it's very tempting, and this is what is being done, to convert people to whatever belief you want. It may be even against their own interests, but they'll still believe it if you apply the techniques over a sufficient period of time, and that's what happens. Now, we know that in religions this happens a lot, and we know that it happens in very, very highly thought of spiritual movements.
Mm-hmm.
I like Osho, but that's what he did.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you can capture people and you can use them however you want. But this is not about being captured. This is about being a free woman, a free man in this world. So very, very different enterprise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very different enterprise. Now, if you want to convince yourself, that's easy. You just go and find somebody that's going to repeat the same thing over and over and over. I am, I am, I am, I am, I am, I am. And sooner or later you believe I am. And that's great, as long as somebody doesn't come and rock your world. by giving you some, some problems that you have to face. And that's why comprehensive development of the whole human being, and the way I look at things, or the way my teachers and this enterprise, it's the development of the entire human being, which makes them less likely to be succumb. Now, that may not be adaptive if you have a society that wants to kill you because of your freedom of thought or freedom of spirit. So that happens too. So, questions?
I mean, not a question, but like at least from my experience, what I have, because I went through conviction a lot in the past, and what I noticed was that with
Good.
conviction, the only thing I was trying to address was get that security and remove all the doubts, and that was it.
Perfect. Beautiful. You said it better than I did. Conviction is a better word. Conviction can be cultivated, and at its root, there's a desire for security and to remove doubts. And who wouldn't want those things, right? So it's easier, it's cheaper, it's faster, but it's not the same thing at all. And so, thank you for articulating that. Very good.
And I think we can get to at least the same place or a better place just by getting rid of hope and fear, because then I
Yeah,
don't
but
need security and I don't
yeah, but tell people that, oh, you're going to have to drop hope and fear. If they react the way I did, they'll go, oh my God, that's not possible. That's way, I mean, even if it is possible, it's in this distant future, because I can't drop hope and fear, right? And the fear part, that's easier than the hope part, right? And so, I mean, for some people, I guess it's reverse for other people. But these are really, I mean, we're jumping ahead a bit. But yeah, freedom includes freedom from hope and fear, carrots and sticks. And that's the freedom that Socrates spoke of as he was facing his death. All right? We're going to have to stop
All right.
soon. Any last
Yep.
question before we stop?
No, nothing. I think, so like for me, just continue meditating on the
Yeah,
spaciousness.
keep going and I mean, like reading Socrates and getting into the Western canon, thinking about the difference between conditioned conviction and the motives of that, and learn about the mind, yeah, as you do the other things. And progress will be made, just like you're making progress, sir. Anything else?
No, that was it.
All right, good. Nice job. Keep going.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
Thank you.